The sun was a furnace in the sky, a brilliant, blinding white. It beat down on the sands of Gran Canaria. Arthur Pendleton walked alone. His feet made soft sounds in the warm sand. The year was 2025. The month was May. The day was hot. He liked the heat. It made him feel alive, or perhaps it simply baked the thoughts from his head. He sought quiet. He found it here by the endless murmur of the sea. The waves rolled in, slow and steady. They whispered old stories to the shore, stories of lost ships, stories of deep, dark places. Arthur listened. He did not understand the words, but he felt the meaning, the vastness of it all, the smallness of him. The beach was wide. It stretched like a golden ribbon between the blue sea and the dusty land. He was a tiny speck upon it, a man walking, a man thinking or trying not to think. He wore a simple linen shirt, trousers rolled to his knees. His face was weathered by sun and wind. His eyes, the color of a faded sky, scanned the horizon, not searching for anything in particular, just looking. The air smelled of salt and heat and something else, something wild and ancient. The island itself breathed around him, a living thing, dormant under the midday sun. He felt a strange peace here, a lonely peace. The gulls cried overhead. Their calls were sharp and clear. They wheeled and dived, looking for their next meal. Arthur watched them. He envied their freedom, their simple purpose. He had no grand purpose that day, only to walk, to feel the sun, to listen to the sea. The world was busy, too busy, but here time slowed. It almost stopped. He took a deep breath. The sea air filled his lungs. It was good. His bare foot struck something hard, not a stone, not a shell. He looked down, half buried in the sand, a glint of metal, dull, corroded. He knelt. The sand was hot beneath his knees. He brushed away the clinging grains. It was a tin, a small round tin, like one that might hold sweets or perhaps tobacco from a long time ago. It was old, very old. Rust covered its surface, a deep, angry red. The tin felt heavy in his hand, heavier than it should. He shook it gently. Nothing rattled, nothing moved inside. Curious. He tried to open it. The lid was stuck fast, rusted shut by time and salt. He turned it over and over. No markings, no clues to what it was, or who had left it here. Lost by a sailor, perhaps? Washed ashore by a storm? A forgotten thing, waiting to be found. He sat there on the sand. The sun beat down. The waves whispered. He held the tin. It felt strangely cold despite the heat. Or was that his imagination? He was a practical man, Arthur Pendleton, not given to flights of fancy. Yet, this tin, it felt different. It pulsed with a very faint, rhythmic thrum. Or was that just his own heartbeat against his palm? He pressed his ear to it, silence, but a deep silence, a waiting silence. He decided to take it. Why, he did not know. A whim, a flicker of childish curiosity. He usually collected shells, smooth, pretty shells. This was not pretty. It was ugly, old. But it called to him, in a way he could not explain. He stood up. The tin clutched in his hand. He looked out at the sea, then back at the empty space in the sand. He had taken something that did not belong to him, or perhaps now it did. Back in his small rented villa, the air was cool. The shutters were closed against the afternoon sun. Arthur placed the rusty tin on the kitchen table. It looked out of place, a dark, rough object on the smooth, clean wood. He found an old knife, a sturdy one. He would open it. He had to know. What secrets did it hold? What made it feel so significant? His heart beat a little faster. Anticipation, or perhaps a touch of fear. He worked the knife blade under the lid, carefully. He did not want to damage whatever was inside. The rust flaked away. The metal groaned in protest. It had been sealed for a very long time. Sweat pricked his forehead. He gritted his teeth. Then, with a final reluctant screech, the lid gave way. It popped off. It clattered onto the table. Arthur peered inside. He frowned. Nothing, just darkness. A deep, velvety blackness. He leaned closer. His eyes adjusted. The darkness was not empty. It swirled, slowly, tiny points of light, like distant stars. He blinked. Was he seeing things? He picked up the tin. He tilted it. The points of light moved. They shifted. They spun. A miniature galaxy held within the confines of an old sweet tin. His breath caught in his throat. It was impossible, utterly impossible. Yet there it was, whirling, silent, beautiful. He felt a shock. A cold wave washed over him, not of fear, not yet, but of awe, pure, unadulterated awe. This was not a toy. This was not a trick of the light. This was real, a universe, a living, breathing universe. cupped in his hands. He sat down heavily on a kitchen chair. His legs felt weak. The knife lay forgotten on the table. He stared into the tin. The tiny stars beckoned him. He was looking at creation itself. The journey home from the beach had been strange. The tin tucked into his pocket seemed to throb with a life of its own. Arthur had walked quickly, no longer noticing the sun or the sea. His mind was on the object he carried, its weight, its unusual coldness. He felt like a thief, though he had stolen nothing but a piece of discarded rubbish. Or so he had thought at the time. Now he knew better. He carried a wonder, a terrible, beautiful wonder. He had placed it on the kitchen counter, right next to the fruit bowl. The apples and oranges seemed dull, lifeless, compared to the swirling mystery in the tin. He kept glancing at it. As he made himself a cup of tea, as he tried to read the local paper, his eyes were drawn back, again and again, to that circle of impossible night, speckled with impossible stars. It hummed, a silent hum, but he felt it deep in his bones. The kitchen was small, ordinary, Formica countertops, white cupboards, a window looking out onto a dusty garden, and now a universe sitting there as if it belonged. He wondered who had made it, how, why, had someone lost it, or had it been deliberately left on that beach? For someone like him to find, someone ordinary, someone unsuspecting. The questions buzzed in his head, like angry bees. He touched the rim of the tin. The metal was still cold, colder than the air in the room. He felt a pull, a strange desire to reach in, to touch the tiny stars, to feel the cosmic dust. But he resisted. Some instinct warned him. This was not to be trifled with. This was power. This was mystery. Beyond his understanding, for now he would just watch. He would keep it secret. The universe on his kitchen counter, his alone. Night fell and, well, the small villa grew quiet. Arthur, you see, he just couldn't sleep. There he was, sitting at the kitchen table, a single lamp casting a warm glow all around him. The tin lay open before him, and honestly, the universe within seemed brighter now, more vibrant in the darkness. He found an old magnifying glass, the kind he used for reading small print, you know. Holding it over the tin, his hand trembled slightly. He leaned in closer, his breath misting the lens. He wiped it clean and, wow, through the magnifying glass, the stars were clearer, sharper. He could see them move, not randomly, but with purpose, with a grand cosmic design. Tiny nebulae swirled, clouds of stellar dust, and he saw pinpricks of light ignite. New stars being born right there in a rusty tin on his kitchen table. It was a miracle, a private miracle. Arthur felt like an astronomer discovering new worlds in the smallest, most unlikely of places. So he fetched his binoculars, the ones he used for birdwatching. They were more powerful, and as he adjusted the focus, the view sharpened dramatically. He could see clusters of stars, faint smudges that might be galaxies. It was like looking through a telescope, but, you know, the telescope was aimed at something impossibly small and impossibly vast, all at the same time. He spent hours like this, lost in the miniature cosmos as time, well, it just ceased to exist. The universe was growing, he was sure of it. The swirling patterns seemed a little wider, the points of light a little more numerous, or was it his imagination, fueled by lack of sleep and too much wonder? Arthur made notes, sketches in a small notebook, trying to map the changes, trying to understand. He felt a thrill of discovery, but also a tiny seed of unease. This thing was alive, and it was changing, growing. Days turned into nights, nights into days. Arthur barely noticed. His world had shrunk to the size of the tin and the universe it held. He bought a small telescope, a cheap one from a tourist shop. He set it up on the kitchen table, pointing it downwards into the impossible depths. The magnification was greater. He saw more, so much more. He saw planets, tiny spheres of colour, orbiting their miniature suns. Some were blue, some red, some green. He watched, mesmerized, as new worlds formed, dust and gas coalescing, spinning into existence. He saw continents take shape on their surfaces, oceans gleam. He fancied he could see weather patterns, tiny storms raging. He held his breath. Could there be life on those infinitesimal worlds? The thought was staggering. He was a witness to the birth of entire solar systems. He felt like a god peering down at his creation, but he was not a god. He was just Arthur. The universe continued to expand, slowly but undeniably. The edges of the swirling mass were now touching the rusty rim of the tin. It filled the container completely. He wondered what would happen when it could grow no further. Would it stop, or would it find a way? He felt a growing excitement, mixed with a strange nervousness. He was playing with something powerful, something beyond his control. He knew it, but he could not stop watching. He began to see structures on some of the larger planets, tiny, intricate patterns like miniature cities or forests or something else entirely, something alien. He could not be sure. The scale was too small, even for the telescope, but he imagined it. He imagined tiny beings living their tiny lives, unaware of the giant eyes staring down at them. From a world beyond their comprehension, he felt a strange connection and a profound loneliness. The wonder was immense. Arthur felt it every time he looked. Each observation brought new marvels. He saw comets streak across the tiny void, asteroids tumble. He even thought he saw signs of nascent species, tiny specks moving with purpose on one of the greener worlds. He could not be certain, but his heart leapt at the possibility. He was witnessing evolution. The universe in the tin was a laboratory, and he was its sole privileged observer, a secret shared between him and creation. He talked to it sometimes in soft whispers. "Look at you," he would say, "growing so fast. What will you become?" The universe offered no reply, only its silent, spinning dance. But he felt a response, in the way the light seemed to shimmer, in the way new stars ignited, as if it were showing off for him, pleased with his attention. He felt a peculiar fondness for it, his universe, his discovery, his responsibility, or so he thought. But the nervousness grew alongside the amazement. A cold tendril of dread began to wrap around his heart. The universe was not just growing within the tin anymore. He first noticed it as a faint shimmer on the kitchen counter, around the base of the tin, like heat haze, but cool to the touch. He wiped it. It came back. The cosmic dust, the stellar energy, it was seeping out, escaping its confines. This was new. This was worrying. He tried to ignore it, to tell himself it was nothing, a trick of the light, a smudge of ordinary dust. But he knew. Deep down, he knew the universe was too powerful, too vast to be contained, even in its miniature form. It was a force of nature, and he had brought it into his home, his small, ordinary home. The dread began to outweigh the wonder. What had he done? What terrible, beautiful thing had he unleashed? He started sleeping less, watching more, with a growing sense of unease. One morning, Arthur woke to a strange sound, a soft, crackling hum louder than before. He rushed to the kitchen. He stopped dead in the doorway, his heart hammered against his ribs. The universe was no longer confined to the tin. It had spread across the counter. It consumed the fruit bowl. The apples and oranges were now swirling masses of stars. Nebulae clung to the toaster. Tiny galaxies drifted around the kettle. The kitchen was being unmade, remade. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through him. This was not wonder, this was invasion. The universe had spilled, like a pot of ink. But this ink was alive. It was growing, eating his kitchen. The Formica countertop shimmered with alien constellations. The wallpaper peeled back, revealing not plaster but a swirling void. Pinpricks of light danced where the sink used to be. The air thrummed with an energy that made his teeth ache. It was beautiful and terrifying. He backed away slowly. The universe advanced, a tide of stars and cosmic dust. It crept up the legs of the kitchen table. It flowed across the linoleum floor towards him. He could feel its strange gravity, its silent call. It wanted to expand, to grow, to consume everything, his small villa, the island, the world. He realized with a sickening lurch that he had made a mistake, a terrible, colossal mistake. He had to stop it, but how? How did one stop a universe? Panic seized him. He looked around wildly, for a weapon, for a solution. His gaze fell on the vacuum cleaner standing in the hall, an absurd thought, but the only one he had. He grabbed it, plugged it in. The roar of the motor was a comforting earthly sound against the silent cosmic hum. He advanced towards the spreading universe, the nozzle of the vacuum cleaner shaking in his hand. He was going to fight back with the only weapon he possessed. He plunged the nozzle into the encroaching starlight. The vacuum cleaner roared. It sucked with all its might, and the universe, it resisted for a moment. Then with a strange sighing sound, it began to flow into the machine. Stars, nebulae, tiny planets, all disappearing into the Hoover bag. It was a battle, man against cosmos, mundane against magnificent. He swept the nozzle back and forth over the counter, across the floor, reclaiming his kitchen, inch by painful inch. It took hours. The vacuum cleaner bag grew heavy, impossibly heavy. He had to empty it several times into strong plastic bin liners, each one pulsed with a faint, captured light. He worked until the last shimmer of starlight was gone. The kitchen was a mess. Dust everywhere, the smell of ozone, but it was his kitchen again, ordinary, safe. The tin sat on the table, empty now, dull. Just a rusty old piece of metal. The magic was gone, or rather contained. He sealed the bin liners tightly with trembling hands. He felt a pang of regret, of loss. He had destroyed something beautiful, something unique, but it had been too dangerous, too powerful. He could not keep it. He could not control it. He had played God and he had failed, or perhaps he had succeeded in saving himself, in saving his small corner of the world. He did not know. He felt only exhaustion and a deep, hollow sadness. Under the cloak of the pre-dawn darkness, he carried the heavy bags back to the beach, the same beach where it had all begun. The sea was calm. The waves whispered. He walked to the water's edge. He looked at the bags, filled with a captive universe. Then, one by one, he threw them into the sea. They sank quickly, disappearing into the dark water. Gone. He stood there for a long time, watching the place where they had vanished. The sun began to rise. A new day, an ordinary day. Arthur Pendleton turned and walked away alone.